D'Angelo Russell and the Los Angeles Lakers have a lot to kind of figure out this offseason, right? Are the Lakers going to bring him back? If they do bring him back, at what price? Obviously, he's not a $30+ million a year guy. Does he sign a long-term deal, say 4 years, $80 million, or 4 years, $70 million, something like that? Does he sign a short-term deal, like maybe 2 years, 35 or 40 million, something like that, and then kind of prove himself, show that he can deliver in the playoffs, and then maybe be the potential face at the point guard position, at least for the foreseeable future for the Lakers. He's 27 years old. He's got good size, good length. He's got all the tools and intangibles to be a solid defender, but that's always been a big issue with D'Angelo Russell defensively. But on the offensive side, he's very productive for the Lakers, at least during the regular season. He played 17 games for the Lakers and played just under 31 minutes per game. He shot 50% from the field, 42% from three, and gave them 17.5 points per game. He also provided 6 assists, 3 rebounds, just under a steal, and just under a block per game. And he was great. And he's a guy that will continue to be that, at least for the Lakers in the regular season. He's shown time and time again. I mean, he is about as consistent of a player as it gets in the regular season. Like every year, the guy gives you 17 plus points per game, gives it to you on efficient shooting, and can give you some playmaking. And you'd imagine he's only going to improve and get better at 27 years old. But the Lakers, again, are very limited in what they can do. There's talks about potentially trading D'Angelo Russell, and there's all the talks about Chris Paul very likely heading to the Lakers. Many reports peg that if the Phoenix Suns do end up waiving Chris Paul, they're still trying to work it out, but they have to do it by the 28th of June. So if they end up waiving Chris Paul, based on all the reports, it looks like Chris Paul very likely is heading to the Lakers, that he wants to go to Lakers. There are several teams that want Chris Paul and that are interested in Chris Paul, but based on the poll from all the executives and stuff, they all believe that Chris Paul will head to the Lakers, that he has expressed that he wants to be a Laker and that he wants to play with LeBron James. And it would make a lot of sense for the Lakers to bring him in on like a vet minimum deal, maybe a taxpayer mid-level, somewhere in that ballpark. He's not going to get 20 plus million or anything like that. He's probably not even getting 10 plus million. Anywhere he goes, that's a contender regardless. Even if it's not the Lakers, is going to be a smaller deal. It's going to be, taxpayer mid-level, 5-6 million, or it's going to be a vet minimum, which is like 3.5 million, somewhere in that ballpark. But if the Lakers do bring in Chris Paul, yes, you could play D'Angelo Russell next to Chris Paul. You could have D'Lo play the 2, but then what do you do with Austin Reeves? Do you, have him come off the bench again once he's gotten paid? Maybe he won't care that much, and he played off the bench most of the year for the Lakers last year anyway, but he's kind of evolved and came into his own. Is Chris Paul willing to take a bench role? I don't know if he will, but you never know. He might say, hey, I just want to win a championship. He's publicly said recently that he wants to win because his children are getting harassed because he hasn't won a championship. So would he be willing to do what it takes to get a championship? Chris Paul, I know a lot of people don't want Chris Paul. It's kind of mixed. I even did a community poll, and it was pretty split. I think it was like 52% wanted Chris Paul, 48% didn't, which is a bit surprising how close that was. But I think on a vet minimum deal, he's a low risk, high reward type play. If he can be the Chris Paul he's been on the Phoenix Suns the last few years, then that's a home run. I mean, home run at a vet minimum deal. If you can't, and let's say he does get hurt, right? Let's say you sign him to a vet minimum deal and he's hurt the entire year. You don't lose anything. You have to fill out a 15-man roster anyway, and you're not going to play all 15 guys. So even if the Lakers don't sign Chris Paul, then you're signing somebody else who's probably not playing anyway. And so at that point, would you rather have a guy that could help win you an NBA championship, who is a veteran that has the understanding, all the ins and outs, that has been in an NBA finals, that has won and hit big shots in the playoff games? Yes, he does disappear at times in the playoffs, but still, he's a guy that he's not going to be the second option like he was in Phoenix. He's going to be the 4th, 5th, 6th option. But again, that begs the question with D'Angelo Russell, because if you have Chris Paul, that kind of eliminates the need for D'Lo, but D'Lo gives you the Chris Paul insurance if Chris Paul does get hurt. D'Lo will also be able to provide and perform throughout the regular season. right? Because Chris Paul at this point, he can't be a 30 to 35 minute a game player. He just can't. Now, he has, I mean, to be fair, he has played more games than like guys like Kyrie Irving in the last handful of years. As much as people want Kyrie, Chris Paul has actually been more reliable and have played more games. But he's a guy that he's going to have to play 20 to 25 minutes a game. He can't be playing 30 to 35 minutes a game. So if you have D'Angelo Russell, that helps tremendously, right? Because D'Lo can handle a bulk of the workload and play a majority of the games. And then once you get into the playoffs, you could have Chris Paul as that guy down the stretch to help you close out games, can hit big shots, shoots 38% from three, still shoots, 48% from the field. So he's a guy that can still put the ball in the hoop, can still play make, doesn't turn the ball over, high IQ. LeBron would trust him. He basically replaces Dennis Schroeder, which, look, Chris Paul is better than Dennis Schroeder, right? Like, if you could choose between Chris Paul and Dennis Schroeder, look, Chris Paul is that guy. He's still just overall better. I mean, Dennis Schroeder at times was literally unplayable for the Lakers. He does provide the defense, which is nice, but he wasn't stopping people the way that we needed him to, and a way to make up for his lack of offense. At least Chris Paul can generate you offense. And even if he's not, like, let's say he's having a poor shooting night, or, he just can't find his stroke that night, right? He can still make plays and is going to take care of the ball and make the right decisions. But you look at D'Angelo Russell, and it's just like, man, if he could perform and deliver during the regular season during the playoffs the way he does in the regular season, dude, like, we probably would have won the NBA championship, right? If we had another 17-point a game guy on the Lakers during that run against the Denver Nuggets, we probably win that series. Now, D'Lo was fine outside of that series. He had his moments, right, where he was really bad, but he single-handedly saved us in that Memphis Grizzlies series. He had some great games in the Warriors series, some solid games in the Memphis series. Like, he wasn't terrible. Like, people painted out like D'Angelo Russell was basically just the worst player on the court every single night. You can make an argument in that Denver series, but during the other two series, he was very good. We probably aren't even in that Denver series if it wasn't for D'Angelo Russell. But he does need to be consistent, right? We do need him to kind of night in and night out be that third guy, right? Whether it's 15, whether it's 20. We need him to be able to give us 15 and 8 a game, whatever, 15 and 6 a game. Because again, he's the third guy, right? We don't need him to give us 25 and 12, right? We need him to do and provide and be that third 3-level scorer for us, that guy that can play make and do things. And for the long term, the longevity, D'Lo makes more sense, right? Now, again, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You don't have to bring in Chris Paul and now get rid of D'Angelo Russell. But if you have D'Lo, you have Reeves, and you have Chris Paul, somebody's got to come off the bench. Does Chris Paul and his status basically forbid him from coming? If he's willing to come off the bench, then perfect. Like, if he's like, hey, I don't want to mess up what you guys got going on. I want to add to it. Let me come off the bench and, just give me 20 minutes a game, right? Perfect. Because he could play in place of Reeves. He could play in place of D'Lo. You could play D'Lo and Reeves alongside him, right? Like, if he's getting Dennis Schroeder's minutes, essentially, perfect, right? If not, otherwise, is D'Lo willing to re-sign if he has to come off the bench? Does Austin Reeves does he get upset and bothered if he has to come off the bench? I think if anybody was going to end up coming off the bench, it'd probably be Austin Reeves. But the problem is that impacts the defense, right? Because yes, you'd have Chris Paul and you'd have D'Lo who can both shoot the ball, and D'Lo was playing great off the ball, and it gives you that secondary ball handler in the starting lineup. But Austin Reeves is a better defender than both of them, and you'll lose that defense in your backcourt, which puts more pressure on guys like Jared Vanderbilt, puts more pressure on guys like Anthony Davis, even LeBron James. He might have to pick it up defensively. Can he do that over the course of an 80-game season or 82-game season? Like, those are all serious things. I mean, again, ideally, you have D'Lo come off the bench, and now you're in you have D'Lo come off the bench, and boom, now you're in business, right? You got Chris Paul, you got Austin Reeves, so you got a solid defensive front court. Chris Paul isn't the elite defender he once was, but he's still solid defensively. He's still around league average, so he still can provide some defense. He's better than D'Lo defensively, so you get the defense, you have the playmaking, you have the scoring, you have all the things that you need, and then you have D'Lo who can basically run the second unit. He's probably going to play 30 minutes a game anyway. Can egos kind of be put aside in order to contend and try to win an NBA championship? The most likely outcome, in my opinion, is the Lakers sign Chris Paul and they trade D'Angelo Russell. They work out some sort of trade. The Lakers are already in consideration for signing and trading D'Angelo Russell anyway. They already are kind of looking to maybe make some moves for D'Lo regardless. So if they bring in Chris Paul, that essentially voids any necessary need for D'Lo, right? Because now you got Chris Paul, you got the veteran that thing. You're pushing your chips all into the table. So my guess is if they do sign Chris Paul, then the Lakers look to take D'Lo, Beasley, and Mo Bamba, all the draft picks they can trade, and try to go make some moves. That's my guess. And then you'd have, Chris Paul, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. You'd have Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt. And then maybe they try to bring back Schroeder. That could be a possibility, and have Schroeder be the backup in exchange and replace of Chris Paul. You could still have Chris Paul only play like 20, 25 minutes a game because you have Austin Reeves who can handle the ball. You got LeBron James that can handle the ball. And then if you can keep Dennis Schroeder, you'd have Dennis Schroeder who can handle the ball, things like that. You just need somebody to cover basically the 20 minutes that Chris Paul isn't playing, and you're good, right? And you even, LeBron James, if he has to, he can play make and do that stuff. So I do think that is the likely approach. The Lakers sign Chris Paul, then that kind of eliminates the need for D'Angelo Russell. They look to move D'Angelo Russell. Hopefully they can get some quality pieces to add in, and then there you go. Now you're off to the races and have a chance to win an NBA championship. Chris Paul isn't the only answer. Like, if the Lakers just get Chris Paul and that's it, I mean, I still think they can win an NBA championship. Absolutely. I mean, Chris Paul, like, if you replace Chris Paul with, say, D'Lo or Schroeder, then the Lakers might have won and been in the NBA Finals. Like, seriously. Because, again, you had 3 out of 4 games decided by less than 20 points. 3 out of 4 games. So you're telling me that Chris Paul couldn't have made the difference in a guy that could hit shots down the stretch, stuff like that? Like, even if Chris Paul wasn't great, like, he couldn't have been worse than D'Lo. He couldn't have been worse than Schroeder. Both of those guys were giving us goose eggs, right? So at least Chris Paul, even if he gives you 10 points a game, that might have been the difference to win, right? So I do think the Lakers need more than just Chris Paul. Like, you add Chris Paul, and then it's like, what else? I think that they could use another big man, another perimeter defender, and at least a 3-point shooter. But anyway, as always, this is the discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? What do you think they should do with D'Lo? Do you think that they should trade him? Do you think they should keep him? Do you think, try to find a move? Do you think keep him for now, see if you can make it work, and then maybe if not, make a move at the trade deadline? How do you feel? Whatever your thoughts are, love to hear it. Let me know.